Hello, everyone. As I aspired to be a sports broadcaster, I draw many of my references and metaphors from the world of sports. For this week's Torah portion of BMidbar, I want to introduce a tongue-in-cheek citation awarded to the player referred to as Mr. Irrelevant. Mr. Irrelevant is a term and honor applied to the last college football player selected in the National Football League draft, when college football athletes are selected to play for a designated professional team. The award Mr. Irrelevant was introduced years ago to affirm that even the last player selected among hundreds of peers was also a fine athlete with gifted athletic skills. When we consider how few young men and women actually succeed in professional sports, we remind ourselves of how so many who are unable to succeed as pros were elite high school and college athletes, far athletically superior to most of us. The Mr. Irrelevant Award not only calls attention to the special and elite nature of the last player selected, but conveys how no person, regardless of status or lack thereof, is irrelevant in life. We can apply the football metaphor to this week's Torah portion, BMidbar. A detailed census is taken within all the tribes, except for the Levites, to determine the number of eligible soldiers available to defend the young nation. Just as an aside, we know that Israel boasts of many male and female soldiers, so a contemporary Torah would include today's realities of women as well as men. In contemporary terms, the Torah's detailed and somewhat prosaic account of the number of soldiers per tribe suggests how all of us need to stand up to be counted. However, the Torah could convey such a notion in condensed language without presenting such a lengthy and uninspiring list of tribes and census. So my thought is that here, as elsewhere, the Torah intends a deeper meaning beyond the surface. Through its language, the Torah census suggests two more personal ideas about our relevance in the world. First, we regard everyone as being created in God's image. Even the last of Judah's 74,600 soldiers is just as invaluable as number one. Second, we remind ourselves about the individual sanctity we bring into the world. Ultimately, whether rich, poor, powerful, or anonymous, we meet the same end. With a sense of pride and not hubris, each of us should proudly remind ourselves every day of the priceless gifts we contribute to our world. The pandemic directed us to the sanitation collector, the mail carrier, the hospital orderly, and the cemetery grave worker who dutifully performed with skill and consistency essential services we often take for granted. Hopefully, the pandemic also reminded us that as we affirm our individual relevancy, we never denigrate, nor deny the relevancy of others. If you are a boss, the lowliest operative in your organization deserves respect as being in God's image. If your work requires interpersonal communication of any sort, address people in speech and in written word with the honor and dignity they deserve. The census, therefore, is a metaphor for counting and cherishing every human being on earth with the sanctity God demands. Mr. Irrelevant, even if a distinct honor, is a term employed in the exclusive world of football, but not in the universal world in which we all live. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.